Hello, and welcome to the Bettendorf Public Library's Take-Home Workshop. Today, we're going to be making lace earrings using just a simple piece of lace and a little bit of Mod Podge. In your kit, you will find a length of our lace. We gave you enough that you could make earrings of whatever size you want. So we gave you basically 12 flowers. We're going to be using 2 today, but if you want a longer earring, you could do. If you want to do shorter, obviously you could do. So, but we gave you enough to do a length that would work for you. You're going to find a little envelope like this, and this contains our findings. So it will have 2 ear loops, and then it will also have the backs to the earrings, and then about a half dozen jump rings, just little gold rings that we will use to attach the earrings to the ear hooks. You'll have a container of Mod Podge. You might be familiar with Mod Podge. We've used it in at least one workshop before. It's similar to a white glue. It dries clear, and this is what we'll be using to stiffen our lace. A brush for that, and a piece of wax paper to work on. What we're going to ask you to supply is a pair of scissors. We're going to ask you to supply a sharp of some kind. Now, I'm going to use a large needle. You can use a needle, you can use an awl, you can use the tip of an X-Acto knife, anything that will allow you to open up a small hole. And then you're going to need pliers, and I find it easier to work with 2. These are needle nose pliers. You can do it with regular pliers. If you don't have pliers, then you can come to the library, and upstairs in our creation studio, during any of our open work hours, you can come in and just ask the staff person on duty, may I please use some pliers? And we'll get our pliers up for you, and you can assemble your earrings here using our tools. So that's the materials. Let's get started. For my earrings, I'm going to use 2 of our little flowers that we have on our lace here. So I'm going to take my scissors and just cut in between there so that I have just 2 of them. And you'll see this one's kind of wrinkled, so it's bent, and that's okay because the Mod Podge will flatten that out. I'm going to trim these little threads off. I want my top and bottom to be nice and tidy. And I do that carefully. I don't want to cut into the lace so it unravels, but I want it to be neat. So I have those 2. I'm going to put them on my wax paper, and then I'm going to use my Mod Podge, and I am going to use it somewhat sparingly. So I'm just going to brush it on here. And you want it to saturate it without getting gloppy. If you get it on there too thick, you're going to lose some of the laciness. You will also maybe get Mod Podge in between that will dry in a sheet in between, and you'll be able to see that in your finished product, and you don't want that. So I'm going to do it, and I'm brushing it on somewhat lightly, and then I'm going to flip it over and do the same. But I'm not just glopping it on there. I'm not just pouring it on there and letting it sit. Okay, then I'm going to peel it up from here, and I'm going to lay it down in a clean section of my wax paper. The reason I'm doing that is because I don't want it to pick up any of this. I want it to stay as clean as possible. So we're gonna let that sit. We're gonna let it sit for about 10 minutes. We're going to let it get fairly dry. We're going to do that 2 or 3 times until the lace gets your desired stiffness, but it's going to take more than 1 coat. So we'll let this sit now for 10 minutes or so, and then I'm gonna come back and do it again. These have been drying for about 10 minutes. So I'm just going to peel them off. You'll see they're not all the way dry, and they're not very stiff. And I'm going to flip them over and flatten them out. And And I'm gonna let them dry now for a couple more minutes before I do my second coat. You'll see where some of the Mod Podge kind of pooled on the wax paper here. I don't want it sitting in that. I don't want these clumps. So I just pick it up, flip it over, give the other side a chance to dry. I'm gonna let that sit for about 5 more minutes, and then we'll come back and do second coat. 5 more minutes have passed, and making them, they're not completely dry, but they are mostly dry, and they are a little bit stiff. So I'm gonna find a clear spot on my wax paper, and I'm going to just repeat that same process. I'm going to just blot the Mod Podge on there. I want to saturate the fabric without filling in the holes. So if I get too much, I'm going to move it off the Mod Podge, and I'm going to kind of blot it with my brush. Both sides. And in between blotting or painting the Mod Podge on there, you can just use a little water to wash your brush out. This is water soluble, so it'll come out, and that way your brush doesn't get all stiff in between. So we're going to take it off of the wet spot, and I'm just going to, again, just blot it. And I'm going to kind of use the side of my brush. I want to use the dry part of the brush here to get some of that excess Mod Podge out of there. And then again, I'm going to lay it flat. Now I will say that this one, the curve on this one is enough that the Mod Podge is having a hard time getting it to lay flat. It will. But so if you have if your lace is particularly wrinkled, bent, or something like that, you could run a warm iron over it before you start the process. That might help too. We're gonna let that sit again for about 10 minutes. Let that dry, and then we'll come back and see if we need a third coat. Time has elapsed, and they are mostly dry, but again, they're getting stiffer, but they're not as stiff as I want them to be. And this is entirely a matter of preference. You could go ahead and put the findings in now and have it be a little softer like this, but I want mine pretty stiff. So I'm going to continue with this pattern where I paint it with the Mod Podge, I let it dry, I flip it, I let the other side air dry, and then keep doing that if I need to more than one more time until it is at the stiffness that I want it to be. I've put some more coats of Mod Podge on, and I've let it dry. I did go in while it was still somewhat wet, and I used a needle and I poked a hole through in some of the areas where the lace had been filled in with Mod Podge. I just poked it right on through. You can do that after the Mod Podge is dry, but it's a little bit easier when it's still a little bit wet, and open up to maintain this lacy look. I don't want all these spaces filled in, I want them open. So I just, if my Mod Podge got a little thick, I could just open them back up again. Our next step is to add our findings. So I gave you at least a half dozen jump rings and 2 earring hooks. And what we're going to do is we're going to use our sharp. So I'm just using a fairly wide needle, and I'm going to poke a hole. And this is a hole actually that is there naturally in the lace, but it kind of got filled up with Mod Podge. I'm going to pull my needle through to make sure that I have a hole right there. Right there, I went through. And then I'm going to take my pliers, and I like to do this using 2 pairs of pliers. I find it easier. I hold on to my jump ring with one. I hold on to my jump ring with one, and then I take the other and I just bend it. And that gives you a little bit of an opening there in your jump ring. Then we're going to take and we're going to work that through the hole you made in your earring, in your lace. And it can be a little tricky. especially if you're trying to do it on camera. There we go. So we're just gonna poke one through. And then we're gonna take our pliers and we're gonna tighten that up again. And we want it to run up between two petals. I'm just gonna take and I'm going to bend those back till the ends meet again. So now I have one ring that is just right between these two petals. It is a little tricky to see on camera. There you can see it better. If I were to attach my fishtail hook to that right now, then your earring would hang the wrong direction. So I'm going to put another jump ring on there. I'm going to do the same thing where I use my 2 pairs of pliers. If I can get a good handle, there we go. Use 2 pairs of pliers, just give it a little bend to open up the thing. And then I'm going to run it through the jump ring that's on there already. And I'm going to put my hook on. You don't want to bend the eyelet on the hook because this wire is so delicate that if you manipulate it too much, it will break, I found out. So we're going to just slide that one on there too. And then we're going to grab that and close those up. You want to get the ends to meet together nice and snug. Squeeze from the side maybe. And that's all there is to it. So you have your earring with 2 jump rings and then the fish hook. And there's your finished earrings. And you have a great summery pair of earrings that is deceptively easy to make, I thought. Remember that if you need pliers to assemble your earrings, we have them in the Creation Studio. Creation Studio open work hours schedule and other events are listed on our website at bettendorflibrary.com/create. We would love it if you shared your work with us on our social media, and our thanks to the Friends of the Bettendorf Public Library for sponsoring this take-home workshop.